Okay, this is welcome everybody to our first Economic Expansion Committee meeting. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and being here. And I guess we're going to start right off. I need a approval of the agenda.
Move to accept the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna do a little bit of a roundtable, just by means of an introduction, who you are and where you're representing and whatnot. I'll start. I'm Kevin Nicklin. I'm the chair of the Economic Expansion Group. I'm also the mayor of Grand Lake and our municipality of Grand Lake. We look forward to working with everybody on this project and look forward to some great outcomes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Smith, and I'm the CEO of the Capital Region Service Commission, and I'm also going to be your senior lead on this particular file. I'm supported here today by other staff. I'll let them introduce themselves, but we have a very good team and very pleased to be working with our partners here that are joining us today for this meeting with Ignite and Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, and should be hopefully a very robust conversation today.
Great, thank you. Andrew Lockhart, Director of Economic and Entrepreneurial Growth at Ignite, leading the business growth side of things and our business development officers. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi everyone, Nosheen Ali. I'm the Director of Workforce Development and Attraction at Ignite, and I also lead the functions for integration and retention of newcomers in our region.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Erickson. I'm the Deputy Mayor for the City of Fredericton. Very happy to be here.
Paul Menyea, Ward 2 Councillor for Arcadia, formerly known as Entity 66. I chair the Economic Expansion and Tourism Committee for Arcadia Council, and I'll be happy to speak about that later, but I'm very pleased to be here as well.
Thank you. My name is Don Fitzgerald. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Capital Region Service Commission. I'm a commercial banker by training, and after about 20 years, I switched to local government. I was the Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives for the City of Fredericton for 10 years. Then for 10 years, I was the Executive Director of RSC 11. And last year, I had the interesting experience of being a transition facilitator for 6 municipal restructurings in the province. Which was insightful.
Hey, I'm Kelly Shaw. I wear a few hats, but today I am the capacity of IT.
And if you want to ask the sign.
Okay, maybe if you can go online, we'll start with Director Hayward.
Hi, my name is David Hayward. I'm the mayor for Sunbury York South. Looking forward to seeing what this group can bring together. So,
And then there you go, Victoria Green.
Hi, I'm Victoria Green. I am a counselor for the Nash Rock Rural Community, and I'm excited to be here. I'm sure I have lots of learning to do. So,
Okay, and Fredericton Capital Region Tourism.
Hi, I'm Dave Seabrook. I'm the Director of Capital Region Fredericton Tourism, and I'm here with Stacy Russell, the manager, and Rose Arsenault, as you know, as our regional coordinator.
Okay, I think that's everybody by a round table here. And I think we're going to start right off with a presentation by Ignite.
Great. We'll jump right in.
I think Kelly's going to pull it up here. Just
Sure, I'll get it. Great, thank you, Kelly. As she's bringing that up, we'll give you a quick update on what we're doing. We'll talk about some of the businesses we've been meeting with, some of the things we've been doing, but I wanted to actually get a little more tactical for this presentation and showcase what how businesses are interacting with our business development team and the rest of Ignite. So like I said, I'm Andrew Lockhart with the Director of Entrepreneurial and Economic Growth. So I'm going to start on the business growth side, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Nosheen to talk a little more workforce. But the biggest component I wanted to start with is that our business development team is complete. We have business development officers who are quite literally on the road. They're boots on the ground, running around right now, meeting with businesses, interacting. And I kind of want to give you a picture on exactly how they're going about it. So if you don't mind switching to the next slide real quick. The first one I wanted to talk about was when we streamlined our business growth services, we've done it from startup to succession planning. So it doesn't matter at what stage the business is at. They get a hold of our team and then we figure it out for them on who's the best resource and things like that. Or you see here, she's our startup specialist, and keep in mind, when I say startup, I'm not just talking about your IT tech startup who's looking to raise capital or venture capital, things like that. I'm talking about a restaurant or an entrepreneur who wants to start a restaurant. I'm talking to someone maybe who wants to start a small business on Main Street, but also somebody who may want to start the tech firm, take on it at a global level, everything like that. Ori has those resources that support that experience. She's an entrepreneur herself and has that background and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter at what jurisdiction or region, I should say, that the entrepreneur is in, they will be speaking with Ori. So if we move on to the next slide, we've taken into consideration business counts and all of that data to see where our business development officers will be, who will be reacting to who. So Hannibal here will be working with both Fredericton and New Maryland. She, again, is already boots on the ground, meeting with our downtown Fredericton, our business Fredericton North, all the businesses and so on and so forth. She has an extensive background in our programming and business development as well. In the next slide, you'll see Sophia. We've put her what I call the west side of the capital region, but she's taking care of your Nacwig, your Central York, your Nashwauk, and so on and so forth. She as well has experience in that business development and everything like that. Sophia just last week was in Harvey. This week she was in Central York and Nashwauk. And I'll get into a few slides later in the strategy that our BDOs are doing. The next slide is the last BDO I want to talk about today. Danielle, some of you will have met Danielle. She's an entrepreneur, a farmer, extensive experience in this ecosystem. She's responsible for what I like to call the east side. The east side of the capital side, so your Arcadia, your Grand Lake, your Oromocto, Tracy, Fredericton Junction, so on and so forth. Any entrepreneur, or I should say business, that's on that side of the shop, they have it. So if they're a startup, they're going to Ori. But any other business, that whether it doesn't matter if they're 50 years in business or 5 to 10, but they have a long business, they're working with Danielle. There's scenarios where they'll be working with both Ori and the respective business development officer. That's A-OK. It's critical that our team is communicating anyways. So it's just more resources for the client. We have a both reactive and proactive approach. What you're seeing here, when I'm showing this is I guess in a way a reactive. So if they fill out a form, they inquire about Ignite services, they're telling us whether or not they're a new business and or just are an SME who've been around for a while. That will help us determine who they go to, but also their region. So if someone is from, let's say, Central York, and they need some help with their business, it automatically will get sent to Sophia. And she will be responding within 24 hours to ensure that at least they can set up a meeting and go on and so forth. The key is the less amount of time for the business to be getting those services and that support. And that support could be funding, it could be a conversation about sales, it could be marketing, whatever it is, but it's our objective to ensure we find the challenge that they're facing and help them resolve that. The other side is the proactive, and that's what I'm talking about when I say they're on the road. If we skip to the next slide real quick, each and every single region, the business development officer has a strategic approach of how they're approaching the businesses. We have business counts for every single region. They put those through Excel sheets and calculate it. And then if you move on to the next slide, they get a little more strategic. So it's not just going from business to business to business, it's because they would have to be strategic on how they move forward. So this is a prime example of Sophia going through Hanwell. It depends on the year, it depends on the time. In theory, maybe she's focused on a certain industry depending on the year. Maybe if it's towards the holiday season, retail will be needing a little more support, things like that. They have strategic approaches to every single region. They have the contact information. They reach out beforehand and so on and so forth. The, actually, we'll go to the next slide real quick. Make sure I'm not talking too fast. Oh, yeah, and so the feedback that it's important that they at the very least have a conversation. A business doesn't necessarily need our help for it to be a very valuable meeting. We need to understand what the challenges they're facing and what they need long term. That in turn turns around into programming that we provide. All of our programming we rebuilt this year is client focused. We don't create a program and say, you should try this, it's a good thing. We think it's good for you. The client tells us what they need, and then we create the programming that surrounds that. So it's going to be a very busy summer and fall, which is excellent. We've already started one of the programs, the digital footprint program, which is not just ensuring that our businesses have an e-commerce presence. It's ensuring that they understand the full world of their digital presence. It's not just you could use a good, a strong sales program or something like that. It could, maybe they want to ensure that Facebook's A-okay. Let's make sure that they have the resources they need to maintain that. And then we have some other ones coming up, including the business immigrant potentials. And one of the two new ones we have, which is the business builder. I talked to you about our definition of a startup. We have an ideation, what we call the business builders, but ideation, anyone looking to start a business. When we say ideation, sometimes that comes off as strictly IT focused, things like that. If someone's interested in that, that's great, but it's also for those looking, like I said, to start a restaurant, start a business in any industry, whatever, that's built for them. But we also have programming designed for those businesses that have been around for a while. We call it growing with your business, that will hit the essentials of helping with when it comes to time management, costing, and meetings with teams, and some of the, what I like to say, kind of the non-fancy terminal or the stuff that some businesses may not be paying attention to right now because they're busy with so many other things. We want to help them with that process and help them grow from there. So at this point, I am going to hand it off to Nosheen. I have a tendency to talk a lot. So before I keep going, I'm going to cut me off now and hand over to our colleagues to talk about the workforce side.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And actually, this segues very nicely into our workforce efforts that we're undertaking all across the region. Fredericton was always on board. We used to do a lot of activities in Fredericton, but now that we want to expand, we depend on our BDOs to bring in a lot of intelligence from the market as to what the regions need, what are the businesses looking for. And this is an ongoing process. So when our BDOs go out, they talk to businesses, they understand what their labor needs are, where the shortage is, whether there is a shortage or not. And then when they bring in that information, we have the capacity to tailor-made or customize our programs according to the region's needs and taking our programs to the regions. So this is something that is in process. We have a lot of information and we are planning a few activities in these regions in Q3 and Q4. And later along the year, we already have a workforce development plan for the next year ready, which we have to present to the RSC. And once it's ready, we would roll it out and we would all see what's happening. But just in a nutshell, just to explain what the workforce development looks like at Ignite, we like to divide it into 4 sections. Number 1 is attraction. So there is always a focus on global attraction, which is, our newcomers and immigrants who come from all over the world. We want to make sure that we attract immigrants from those places or those known places which have been known to bring in immigrants that would stay in our region. So we focus more on those regions. We focus more on those skill sets that our businesses need, that our regions need. The Startup Visa program is a great way of attracting innovative entrepreneurs. And once they come into the system, they then, get attached with our business growth team, and that's how they receive all the support services. And of course, investment attraction is another way of attracting skilled workers and investment in the community. The other is connection. So yes, we attract labor, but how do we engage them, or how do we connect them with the local market, or how do we help them settle down? Connection is all about connecting labor to employment opportunities or to their opportunity to integrate economically into our community. And for that matter, our job fairs have been great. In fact, there is one happening right now at the Fredericton Inn. It ends at 2. We have about 300 people rolling into that, so that's great. We had a job fair in Oromocto last month. We do spotlights as well, so this is an ongoing process, and we plan to take our job fairs to the smaller communities as well, just to make sure that their labor needs are met. Integration and retention are very close to the immigration side of things, because we know that we have a large population of newcomers who need to be integrated into the community. And that is a very, very important function, because that is what helps us retain them. And retention has been a problem that we have faced in the past few years. So just to overcome that, there are a few programs that have been designed to tackle retention specifically, and that include a program for newcomer women and a program for international students and the Connectors program. These are all a few, just a few examples that help us integrate our newcomers into the community so that they make this their long-term home. Can you switch the slide? Yeah, and if you can see, there are a few KPIs that we identify for ourselves. This is a joint slide between myself and Andrew, so the two teams work together on achieving all these KPIs. Our annual results are usually published at the end of the year, but if you want to see the quarterly results, so once it's reported to the board, it is available for public consumption. You can see, I am very confident in saying that we are pretty much on mark so far. Our KPIs are being met, and we will continue to do so in the rest of the year.
If I can jump
Yeah.
in, this is important to note because it's essentially our scorecard, but this is an overview. We break it down by what we call 30, 60, 90-day goals. Every single, for example, business development, actually everybody at Ignite has their 30, 60, 90, so we track that via, so the business development officers are going by support hours, programming hours, jobs and things like that broken down. So we can really track throughout the year where we need support, where we need to focus and things like that. We want to go to the next slide real quick. One thing I will emphasize is we do have our social media presence and things like that. We do have a newsletter. Anybody, please talk to me. Anybody who is not on our newsletter, I would love to have you on our newsletter to show what we're doing. Also, now that our business development officers are on the road, they're posting about the businesses they're interacting with. We're getting a lot of really positive feedback from that. So we're happy to share that as well. But I really want to emphasize this page. If you want to see everything we're up to, we also have an events calendar. Events that not only we're hosting, but events that we're playing a role in, we're having a presence in. Really important stuff on this one. And I believe with the final slide after this, yes, that concludes our update. Happy to address any questions or where the next step in the format is.
Okay, I think at this point, we would like to ask everybody if they have any questions, and just to kind of get the ball started. I think it's great that, and I understand that you're kind of just starting out, getting things moving, but from my standpoint, I would like to understand better. You say you have a 30, 60, 90-day report that you report to. Who does that report go to? Does that go back to the mayors, or does that go to, how do we find out what's happening in our area versus going out and doing a poll of all of our businesses and our people? Counter to that is our newcomers in my particular area. We have a lot of newcomers coming in, and are your numbers in conjunction with, say, a local business that has a newcomer attraction, such as in my case, JDI has their own branch that they send people to Europe, they send people all over that they require, and are those numbers infiltrated into the same numbers that you have? So that would be my question.
Well, the first part of that is referring to the 30, 60, 90. That's the 30, 60, 90 is more designed for our employees to ensure that they are on track for the quarterly reports. So by the end of the quarter, there's no surprises, or we can again identify what areas we're very strong in or areas we need to work with the team to improve. Those numbers amount to the quarter reports, which then gets presented to the board for approval, which I believe then gets presented to the Regional Service Commission and so on and so forth. So that's where that will come in. When in doubt, a conversation about the individual businesses where we, alongside while the business development officers are speaking with the businesses, we're actively ensuring we're going to be, or we are communicating and so on and so forth with our strategies and the jurisdictions to communicate with those in the community, the municipalities and things like that to see what we're doing. We're staying present. So that's being rolled out. As
So our biggest concern is when we look at these overall numbers, we have no idea what's going on in our localized area. So
Yeah.
if Fredericton was 65% of the population or 65% of the business, I would assume they're getting 65% of the calls. However, if I'm 5%, I still want my 5% of calls in my area. So how do I quantify my numbers of my community out of those numbers?
well, it's also important to ensure that if there is a jurisdiction that may have 5% of business counts, maybe there's a scenario where the businesses need more support in different ways. So maybe that doesn't necessarily equate to exactly 5%.
Right.
But at the same time, yeah, like so Fredericton has a higher business count. In theory, you're going to see more responses from, or more than when I talk about the proactive and the reactive. The
Yeah.
reactive, you'll likely see more, but that's why it's important that is the proactive is our business development officers are in each jurisdiction, ensuring that all areas are getting addressed and all businesses.
So as you can understand, this is a pay as you go plan, and we're in the honeymoon series in year one. And, you know, everybody's kind of just making sure the ground rules are laid out, but you can rest well sure that outlying areas are going to be concerned about that. So I just want you to, reporting back, we have a whole bunch of catch-all statements in our plans and in our proposals, but reporting the detail back, the devil's in the detail, and we need to make sure that that's looked after. So,
Absolutely.
but, so is there any other questions?
Just to answer the second
Oh,
part of
sorry.
your
Yes,
question.
yes, yes.
When we talk about newcomers and specifically when we talk about numbers of newcomers that are coming into the region, usually we depend on StatsCan and the province for data, because they track everyone that's coming in. The data does not necessarily get to us in time, but we try to make sure that our programs are designed in such a manner that when we take it to Chipman, for example, it is very tailored to the people in Chipman
Right.
and what they need. Like our team is very closely connected with the NBMC office in Chipman to make
Right.
sure that, you know, we understand how many people are coming in. We know that there are hundreds of newcomers there working in the JDI
Right.
what their needs are. They do need support for their spousal employment.
Right.
So, you know, that is another element. So while we might not be able to update on numbers immediately, like we would not be able to tell you how many people came in last quarter. We usually run a year behind in our data like that. But we can tell you what programs we do and how many people in that community were benefited from that program.
I understand. I see you guys have a lot of great things that you can offer and whatnot, but I would think that our municipality, if it had it available to them to show the newcomers as well. Newcomers is a big part of my population in Chipman especially.
Yeah.
It's going to grow to over half of my population in that area. And that, you know, no offense to Fredericton, but once they get past noon and they're in Fredericton.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also want to retain them in my area because I have a major employer that needs those people. And I want to make sure that you know, we're identifying that need as well.
Just an example to tackle that, we have a big networking event coming to Chipman on the last Thursday of July. So that is one place where everyone can come together. The local parties are all contributing. We're using the community hall that's there. So we have a sponsor on ground as well. So that is one place where all newcomers can come.
I was unaware.
Network, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get all these.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recognize the Capital Regional Service Commission is, you know, at the beginning stages with our relationship with Ignite. You know, I wish you the best of luck mapping the assets that are relevant to economic development and newcomer attraction, retention, and support. I'm interested in what can start to happen, I think, after we've mapped the assets and understood the territory that we're operating in. at the beginning of a few of the council mandates I've been a part of, we've engaged with the economics department at UNB to do a sectoral analysis of opportunities. And one of the messages that came over loud and clear several times as it happened is that we needed to find a way to help the communities that are kind of at the front of the manufacturing process, which is the natural resource harvesting and that sector, so that we can create beginning of momentum for the entire business community. We were told by Herb Emery, who at the time was the Vaughan Chair of Economics, that if we found a way to collaborate with the communities in our region to make it easier for them to attract businesses that are in the natural resources sector, then our local businesses that require those businesses for professional services. So, the banks, the accountants, the lawyers, and like all those boats will be lifted simultaneously. So I'm looking down the road quite a bit. But I know part of the mandate of this committee is to take advantage of provincial and federal sources of investment and so on and so forth. And I think we should set an objective to make sure that we can incentivize, the entire community of business opportunities by starting, with a sectoral analysis and really moving forward to, getting the right incentives in place and getting some growth there. And maybe we don't have to worry about some of the other ships because they will follow along. Anyway, comments, looking at the horizon.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Not a question, but a response to Greg's note is, we're in the Economic Expansion Group in Arcadia, focused on 4 areas: housing, natural resources, and environment. Tourism has its own little focus group, but also agriculture and forestry, where we think there's tremendous economic opportunity. We had a deputy minister on from Agriculture New Brunswick at our last focus group, where he cited an economic study that showed New Brunswick only produces 7% of the vegetables that it needs. Which, I mean, I'd like to delve into that stat a little deeper, but that strikes me as not only a food security issue, but a tremendous economic opportunity. I think you're quite right. And one of the things we're doing right now is surveying every person who owns what the province calls prime agricultural land within Arcadia. I don't know what the uptake will be on that survey, but we're doing our darndest to get it going because we need that data. But also that data would help us connect farmers from other parts of the world with land that is now sitting fallow and rev up that economic part of our, the agricultural economy. And if you can get that kind of growth, we believe, then you can start looking at value added export opportunities while addressing a food security issue for our own province. Anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I did have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair. For Andrew, the tangibles and metrics that might be available for some of the positive feedback that's coming back through some of your initiatives. Can you speak to any of those?
Yeah, so if we're talking about responses to programming and one-on-one, like we mentioned, we include quotes and content in our quarterly reports. However, every single program that we do, we ensure that the survey is distributed and filled out to ensure what the proper feedback is. I mentioned the programming we have is not the programming we previously had. It's because we took the feedback into the picture, and like I said, this programming is client built up from the client focus. So we're continuing to improve and tweak the program to ensure it's relevant, it's accessible, and it allows the business to grow. So on those two fronts, yes, we do collect that positive and negative feedback. All feedback on and show some of the quotes in the quarterly report, but also, like I said, every single program we have has a survey component to ensure we get that feedback.
Thank you. And regarding the event in Chipman in the coming weeks, is there a schedule for such events in other areas as well?
Yes, it's usually planned a month in advance. We do one networking event on the last Thursday of every month. And then we move it around across the region, depending on where we find a location and where there is a need. So it's usually a month in advance when we would know all details as to where it's happening for that month. And then it goes out, the promos go out on our socials.
So is there a process in place to initiate any of these, or how do you get to that point? How did you come to be in Chipman and that date and so on?
Yeah, so we have a schedule, like it's going to happen on the last Thursday of every month. We just don't know the locations. We identify based on, what the need is or what we hear from the markets. Our BDO get back with us with a lot of information. If you feel that this is something that you need in your region, then, you can just let us know. And if there is a space, if you think there is enough people, even if there are 10 people in the room, we would come and do it. So we can always plan that.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess for the interest of time, I think we will move on. If you have any further questions, if you could forward them to Kelly or John, and they'll make sure they get moved on to you guys. And if you could answer any other concerns that we may have, would that be fine?
Yeah.
Okay, and so thank you so much for coming and presenting, and we look forward to great things. Okay. Now,
Mr. Chair, and if you'd like,
Yeah.
if our guests would like to stay, you're more than welcome, but if you have other commitments, feel free to exit as well, so it's.
okay, I guess if we could get our next presentation would be done by Capital Region Tourism. You got your mic muted.
Can you hear us now?
We got you now.
Great. Okay, let's see if we can pull this trick off with a shared screen. Oh. What just happened there? Just a sec, we had it up a few minutes ago, and now let's see what we're gonna do here. We got a little problem. Let's see if we can. Okay, there's the screen.
David, we are seeing your screen here.
You are seeing it?
Yes.
It's fully up.
Oh, very good. Okay, so let's see if we can get the slideshow going. Okay, so can you tell me if, just a sec, are you seeing the second slide says year one strategic plan?
No, we're still in a canoe.
Still out in the river.
Yeah.
No, we're having
Or
a
the lake, wherever you may be there.
Let's see, I'm gonna zero out of this and see if we can start again.
It's sharing up on the top screen.
Can we unplug that? Okay, let's. Sorry, we're just quite sure what we had it up and see if we can get in here again.
Do you have those?
I did. There we go. I just have the PDF. I have that up.
Oh, you have the PDF? Maybe we just let me try for a second here. I apologize, and then otherwise we might get you to do it from the PDF and we'll just go slide by slide. It might be easier, but let's just see. We've got it back up here now. Let's go to Zoom. And
You're doing great, Dave. I'd be all over the place right now, so you're doing great.
it's not how it feels, obviously, when you're
Oh, I know. It just feels like everybody is looking at you, but we're really.
Let's do it.
not.
Let's do it your way. Let's have you advance the slides and we'll just go from there. I think that's probably at this point, not quite sure why we've got a technical challenge going on, but
They're inevitable.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because it says it's sharing here, so I'm not quite sure what we have going on. Okay. Gracious. Okay, well, we'll go ahead here. So we've been asked to provide an update to you on our activities for the first quarter or so. We've been very active. So as you can see on the first slide there, the first slide with text, year one strategic plan accomplishments to date. We've established a new destination name, which is Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, within the Life Well Crafted brand, which as we've discussed previously, we think covers the entire region very well. We've hired a new tourism regional coordinator, Rose Arsenault, who I think many of you have met. We've launched our new website, the Fredericton Capital Region website. That was a lot of work and has over 540 regional listings of regional tourism businesses. We produced a new Capital Region visitor guide that's inclusive of regional points of interest and festivals and events. We created a new regional tourism operator database. That was part of our strategic plan, is making sure that we're out getting all the folks in the region into our database so we can communicate with them. And our visitor center has expanded with new training and to make sure that all our visitor center staff are well informed about the region. So if we move on to slide 2, year one underway as per the strategic plan. All our marketing programs now have a regional lens, with leading with our top products to the outside markets, say Ontario and Quebec. We're producing new videos, which we committed to, which will showcase the region as a destination. So that production will go on throughout the summer, and we'll have them ready for next year's tourism season. We're in the process of identifying cross-regional product clusters, and these are really tourism experience clusters that we think bind the region together. I think we're looking at paddling, our trail network, our ATVs, and our snowmobile trails. We've launched an education program for our tourism operators, our business partners, on digital market readiness. Quite frankly, we had some operators inside Fredericton and throughout the region that really weren't up to speed on how to do digital marketing and promote their businesses to the tourism sector in the best possible way. So we had a large workshop that was attended by more than 100 people to learn about digital marketing and how they can work with us, and also how they can work with the province and ensure that their listings are on things like Google Maps, which today are sort of essential in the tourism sector. And we've been collecting what we call digital assets. So we've been out starting to take lots of photos throughout the region, as I said, videos, and collect stories throughout the region. So the next slide is a picture of Rose. And I think most of you have, as I mentioned, have met Rose Arsenault. We're really thrilled. We hired Rose. She has a deep background in the tourism sector. She's worked for the provincial tourism department for many, many years. And we were thrilled that we were able to bring her onto our team. And she's out working with businesses and communities throughout the region. So if we go to the next slide, you'll just get a sense of what she's been up to. She's visited each region more than once, each community in the region more than once. She's had more than 140 touch points with local tourism businesses in communities throughout the region outside of Fredericton. She's done 51 in-person visits with different tourism businesses. And she's out there ensuring that there's regional representation in all the Fredericton tourism assets, Fredericton Capital Tourism tourism assets. So the website, the visitor guide, the calendar of events, the tap room trail, our database to make sure that the region is completely covered. She's out encouraging businesses to update their information on our website, but also on the New Brunswick Tourism website. Many of our regional businesses were not currently on the New Brunswick Tourism website, so that was a missed opportunity. So we're sort of starting by filling in gaps. We're out there developing lots of new and nurturing new relationships. And we were at the Halifax. We had partners with us throughout the region at the largest trade show in the tourism sector in the Maritimes, which was the Saltscapes Travel Show back in April. If we go to the next slide. As I mentioned, in terms of integrating the region, Fredericton Tourism in its previous incarnation had and continues to have many programs like the Frostable Winter Festival, the Taproom Trail, the Dine Around program, the Garrison Night Market, and we've been working to include entities throughout the region in all those programs. And I think they're starting to see the benefits of some of those. And we're out encouraging and making sure we're capitalizing on opportunities. So one example is next year, there's the solar eclipse. We want the entire region to be engaged in that story. So if we move on to the next slide, business development. One of the areas that we're trying to be active in is take tourism businesses that are ready for growth and ready to develop to the next step and get them engaged in some great programs that are out there. So throughout Atlantic Canada, there are programs that are run by ACOA, by what's called GMIST out of Newfoundland, and programs with TINB, programs with the provincial tourism and government. And we're trying to make sure that operators that are ready, that we're moving them into that pipeline so that they're developing their businesses, growing their businesses, hiring new staff, and taking advantage of opportunities. So next slide, pitching businesses across the region to our markets. So our tourism sector, as we've discussed before, is very structured. There's different sectors. There's the leisure, what most people think of as tourism, which is what we call the leisure market, which is people driving in cars into the region. But there's also the travel media sector, the travel trade sector, which is the motor coach and the buses, and sport tourism. And we've been working to integrate regional businesses into all those sectors. And we've had, for instance, we've had travel writers that are coming into the region that we sort of coax travel writers to come visit us. We then take those travel writers out into the region to write stories for outside markets about our regional businesses. Moving on to the next slide, flexing our marketing muscles. So this is, at the core of our mandate, which is tourism promotion, is actually out there advertising on behalf of the region, and the region's investment into our programs, along with the tourism accommodation levy, which is the hotel tax that we collect in Fredericton, and the investment from Fredericton City Council. Those three budgets combine into our larger budget. So we've already this year to date spent over $600,000 promoting the region throughout the Maritimes, throughout Ontario and Quebec, and for the first time in many years back into New England. So just to give you a sense of some results to date, it's really a mid-season snapshot. Our website has had over 600,000 page views. That's really good, up a little bit over our previous successes in that area. Our occupancy is up. Our room sales were up about 20% in the month of May, so we're tracking ahead of schedule. Our hotel partners are telling us that the first quarter was excellent. May and June have been excellent. July looks excellent. A little soft right now, looking for August, but we're hoping that'll pick up as we go on. Moving to social media. So obviously many of you are aware, I'm sure all of you are aware that, pardon me.
Can you change the slide?
Oh, yeah, to the next slide, that we'll go to the next slide with the pictures. Yeah, so we just got some examples here of some of the social media that we've been doing, supporting the region. You know, we've got Minto Tiny Trails and the Minto mountain biking. We've got the Gaspereau fishing, the out at if we go to the next slide, Dumfries Maples for their spring sugar bush. We got promoted Pioneer Days, Normochto, glamping. So we've got all sorts of activity going. And just to sort of point to the future, as I said, we're shooting videos and still photography so that we have assets not only for Fredericton Tourism, Capital Region Fredericton Tourism to use in its promotional activities and its social media, but they would be available to all your communities to use in your materials as well, or your websites, or anything that you would find of value. You're welcome to use our photos. So just a little selection of photos there, from Crab Mountain's new lodge to the distillery in Hanwell to Dumfries Maples, and some of those. And if we go to the next slide. We just show you an example of some of the paid advertising we've been doing online. The Big Axe Beer Festival, we had a campaign around that. We had a winter campaign that was really built around Crab Mountain, and now we're moving into summer and doing campaigns throughout the summer. So, and I think looking ahead on the final slide there, you know, we're really out to raise the profile of our regional tourism experiences and key tourism markets throughout our marketing, expand our regional web presence, identify community opportunities, encourage and facilitate new tourism experiences to develop or grow. Rose, for instance, was out on the Russia Gornish yesterday, I think it was, visiting a new business, Gornabilly Tubing. So out talking to them about how they can grow their business, how they can work with us, how we can help promote them as an example. And then we're doing that with all the various businesses in the region that are tourism specific. And then, you know, we're just beginning to turn our head to, in our year one of our strategic plan, we said we would be identifying product clusters that sort of spread across the region, a paddling network, a ATV and snowmobiling product, and our trails products. And we're just beginning to do that next year in our strategic plan. We'll begin to develop out those clusters, start to develop web and digital marketing assets around them. And we're really, really excited about that. And we actually anticipate coming back to you probably in the fall with a specific presentation about the opportunity we think to take a position throughout Atlantic Canada, if not Eastern Canada, around a family paddling product and a family paddling network throughout the region. So we'll be back to you in the fall with a specific presentation, I think, on that. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks so much again for all your hard work and getting this kicked off and started. We look forward to exciting things for all of our communities in the upcoming future, or in the future. And is there any questions from the floor for everybody? No?
I'll make a comment that we've been working closely with Rose and Arcadia, and a salute on the feedback that I've been getting from people that you've touched base with, Rose, and we look forward to the continued collaboration.
Thanks, Paul.
Great, thank you. And the only comment again, I live and die by numbers, and I would really like to see at some point some way to evaluate where you think you are and where we think you are, and so we can get on the same page.
Yeah, I will say, I think in our strategic plan that we presented and was accepted by the Regional Commission, all our metrics were baked in there. We presented some midterm metrics in our MOU with the region. Our responsibility is for the region as a whole. We're going to work with individual communities to the greatest degree possible, but our you know, in tourism marketing, you know, we're really out to drive people into, you know, attract people with advertising to the region as a whole and develop assets throughout the region and experiences throughout the region that can drive that business. But we're probably not going to be able to do a lot of very specific community-based reporting for you. We'll try to do what we can. A lot of that's going to have to come from you. I'll give an example. We did a lot of marketing around the Big Axe Festival. That festival sold out this week. And so to the degree that we can get reports back from the Big Axe Festival, we can help report that back to you at a localized level. But that information is going to have to come from the operators, come from the festivals and events, come from the communities. So I just want to manage expectations around our ability to deliver in the tourism sector very specific slice data at a community level. You know, we live and die by hotel room sales, by campground sales, things like that, and those we'll be able to report. But yeah.
Okay, maybe that's a good point. Maybe actually the community should be writing the report card how they think that things are going back to you so that you can, you know, look at it that way.
Well, we're happy with that. We actually think that if we're doing our job well, that we'll be getting the feedback. Both we'll be getting the feedback, and you'll be getting the feedback that we're doing our job well. And I think you're starting to hear that throughout the region.
Okay, is there anything further?
If I might,
Certainly.
Mr. Chair, Dave and team, I think the Big Axe, if I heard correctly, and maybe my numbers are wrong, so I'll ask you, what were the numbers on that? I think they're over 1,400, are they not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We know the end numbers. It was just last weekend, and but we know it was sold out. So they had another very successful event. We're in discussions trying to talk to them and NACWIC about what's the potential to grow that, make it, you know, expand it over days so that we're increasingly driving traffic over multi-days. You know, a one-day festival is great for a community and great for an event, but if we can make that a two-day festival, and I think adding on the music, you know, was an effort this year. The music the day before was to try to get people to camp longer, stay longer, buy a hotel room night, buy an extra meal. Every incremental step, essentially it's a battle for hours, right? Every hour that we can hold people in our region and having spending money, that's where that economic transfer is happening. So I don't know the exact numbers, John, and that's an example of we got to wait and get the report back from the festival.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank
coming,
you.
sorry, the event is sold out for this weekend. In my brain, they announced the sellout a few days ago. So in my brain, we've done our work, we're moving on. But the festival itself is this coming weekend.
And Dave, just to give you as a moment here, in all fairness, I think a couple of years ago was when you got first involved with that, and it wasn't a sellout, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
I think it's been growing, and it's a moving target because I think they're adding tickets. So I think they, you know, selling out at a lower rate, and we've managed to work with them, and they've done great work in their own community and working with folks like Greg McFarland and NACWIC and to grow that festival and grow the footprint and increase the number of tickets available.
Can I just add something to that as the example of kind of how Rose is working within each of the communities? We'll stay on the Big Axe for this one. Is New Brunswick Tourism offered a festival grants this year. Part of that is that it has to be a 2-day festival. They need to be able to prove visitation levels, etc. Rose worked specifically with that festival as well as other festivals in the community to help them write their proposals, but also to help them create a path forward to turn that into a multi-day festival. So our team works with all sorts of different events within the region of how can they continue to grow and access different opportunities that might not have been there before.
Okay. I appreciate that. I wish I would have knew that before we had our festival. But anyway, I think if there's no more questions, I want to thank you again for your time and your presentation, and we look forward to all the exciting things that you guys put together.
We look forward to being in front of you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of the goals and objectives of what we're looking for.
We want to set free our guests.
Oh, I am sorry. Yes,
Yes, and you are welcome to stay. It is a public meeting,
That's
so
right.
it's completely up to you, but don't feel free, or don't feel
Obligated.
obligated.
We can head up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you again.
And good presentation.
Okay, so we'll continue on with goals and objectives. You know, I think from my standpoint, I am a little bit confused with the communication factor. I want to really open up the communication. For example, we just had a festival that lasted 4 days, and we had no idea that there was funds available from anyone or anything, so we funded funds out of our capital budget, you know, which we did every other year, and I'm a little bit disappointed that they're not up to help looking for to quantify whether it be regionalized or whether it be as a municipality. And I would like to see us if you don't put a matrix out there and you don't put a bar to hit, you're never going to touch it. And you know, so I think it's important that we actually do have some type of a measuring tool that we as a committee will come up with and say, this is what we're looking for at a minimum. This documents, if you read through them, states clearly that it's a pay-as-you-go system. You know, if you're paying, you should be getting value for what you're paying. And in this particular case, I would consider us the customer. And they're the supplier. And they need to, just as every supplier needs to do, they need to meet obligations. So that's my feeling. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I agree that we're the customer, but I think we also have to be an active participant. Right, you know, if they're working for us and we have to give them something to work with. So I guess in terms of goals and objectives, I think that has to come largely from us, in my opinion. How do we do that? I don't know.
Well, I think that's set in the terms of reference, so we would probably be trying to create, and again, just as a thought, maybe. Sometimes I get triggered, and if you brought up a good point, I get hovered around that point, and then I can't seem to get away from it. And then what we might do, if it's okay again, is that this is just like a thinking group that says, hey, look, this is what we should do. Maybe if we sent those things to John and Kelly, that they could compile them and then send them back out to the group, and then we could try to come up with the terms of reference from that. Would that be fine? Or?
Absolutely. And what we'd be looking for is, what would you like to, you know, when we look at the out of our strategic plan, what was just developed and launched on the 28th. You know, when we look at economic development, we use words like encourage sustainable economic growth by supporting local business attracting investment, workforce development, including newcomer attraction, retention, and promoting innovation across the region. And we want an outcome of that to be a thriving, diverse, and sustainable regional economy with an increased investment, job opportunities, and a skilled workforce that attracts and retains new immigrants. And on our tourism side, we want to strengthen the region's tourism industry by showcasing its unique attractions and supporting local businesses while fostering collaboration among stakeholders. And our outcome on that is a thriving regional tourism industry that attracts diverse visitors, supports local business, and contributes to the economic growth of the region. So I think that's very much aligned, Mr. Chair, what you're saying.
Mhm.
And I think in all fairness to our committee member Menyer's to member Menyer's comment, I think we have to also increase our own awareness and participation and drive that as well. But the communication piece, yes, is something that we'll need to look at within what I think in terms of that. And those goals and objectives, what is it that we want out of that? We've taught, we talk about things in our economic development, like mapping the assets, ensuring communities are aware. So we need information, we need some data, we need the communications. It's those things that we want look at.
Yeah,
And I'll just say one last piece.
no,
if I could.
certainly, yeah.
Just one last comment on that. This is, realistically, we're in the first just crossed the 6-month threshold.
Mhm.
And I'll quote one of my colleagues here at the table, but I won't tell you which one. But anyway, he often says we're going to stub our toe and bang our knees a little bit as we go here in this first year. And we're going to do that, but we got to find our way. But the part of the committee is to look at this, put our terms of reference on that, put our stamp on it, and to be able to bring back recommendations to the board to provide direction as well. So, and in terms of this, we received, I think, 2 very good reports today, at least in my opinion. But is there room for improvement, like anything? Yes, there is, but I think we can.
The communication issue is a big issue. I mean, a lot of the things that they said today came up as a surprise to me. And everything from funding to an event being held in my area, in my building. So I would find that very difficult to think that we aren't running around right now, tripping over ourselves a little bit. So that would be something that I would definitely want to see cleared up. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I look at the outcomes for both economic development and tourism from our strategic plan, what I think a valuable exercise would be is to find, evidence-based key performance indicators that correspond with, the written language on that page. And then once we've identified what these key performance indicators are, I think a very important secondary task is to determine if we actually have policy control over them,
Right.
through, one of these agencies doing work on our behalf. I don't think it merits saying too loudly that, we don't need to worry too much about indicators that we don't have control over. But the ones we do, I like the chair's perspective on this. Let's really get in there
Right.
and make sure that they deliver value to the customer. And that we've got good communication going with the service provider. And to that end, and I think I might regret not asking this question. I was curious how tourism and Ignite communicate with each other, because they do share some overlap space. So
in the article, I actually wrote that in one of my questions when I read it, because in Ignite, it states it's for development and then also tourism. And then all of a sudden we have another contract for tourism. So I'm gonna maybe ask John, if you could comment on that, because that is a question I had as well.
Well, I'll comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question and to the member as well. The communication lines are open. There's frequent communication between both parties and with myself. So I'm your point of, if there's an issue for the committee, for the board, that's supposed to flow through me and to develop or to address those issues through the other CEOs and the director of Fredericton Capital Region Tourism as well. And through their CAO, and we have regular conversations. It's a high level of connectivity. Secondly, on the economic development side is to be able to support. So Fredericton, it's a two-way street, right? I think, to member Mening's point, being the active participant. So somebody wants to develop an opportunity. Well, that's when, Fredericton Tourism's out there and they meet with somebody and somebody says, I have a paddling experience that I want to get in on this new opportunity that I'm hearing about. That's one way. Then Ignite comes in on the economic development front to do the coaching, the mentoring, the development, the expansion, whatever that may be in that front. So there's a synergy there between the two of them. And that was the intended synergy, was to get out and, if one finds, and sometimes it happens in the reverse. Sometimes it's a tourism business asking for coaching, assistance, mentoring, and expansion, on expansion or development, further development. And they, Ignite will reach out to Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, and then it's a partnership. So there is a lot of communication between the two, and it's so far it's been working well. On occasion, I do get a call. I'll say this: I've been called on by some of our directors, and as soon as we reach out, within a couple of days, it's usually resolved and there's someone on there. Part of it too, Mr. Chair, on the newsletter and with the schedule of events within that framework that both have, and I think I'm just being honest here. I believe that Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, has a much greater background in that in terms of that communication when they do that newsletter blast that everybody gets and lets you know what's happening. And Ignite has been working on that. And if you have a look at that newsletter, I don't know if everyone's signed up and our colleagues online as well, but that newsletter, and we can hook you up with that literally in minutes. And I can send you out the most recent link to it now. And if you look on their site, you can sign up for it. It does have the events scheduled even months in advance right at the moment. So I don't know where that gap is in that communication, but we will look at that. Absolutely. I'm hearing that loud and clear from the community there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I mention one
Yes.
thing? Thank you very much. Excellent points. I couldn't agree with you more. I think one thing we should bear in mind though is that the productive calendar for tourism and for Ignite are slightly different. Like tourism really needs to get their act together before the good weather hits, for the summer season and so on and so forth. And so there are kind of some productive realities that both of these groups have to deal with. That being the case, I think things are heading in the right direction to make sure that these groups can work really well with each other.
Right.
Whatever kind of synergies we can get out of them, it's great. But I don't really think they're going to manifest in a very fluid and natural way until we get a couple more years under our belts.
Right.
And then I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. I've been neglecting to look over here to see if you had any questions as well, or just comments, but the things that I guess I believe we do need to come up with the terms of reference, and I think it's important. And I must have wrote down 100 times sectorial incentivized sectorial analysis and that, because I think that's an incredible thought process, and that and what I'm wondering is that something that this group would take on, or is that you are currently doing it? So I'd like to know more about that, but also I think that the KPIs are extremely important, and while these groups are putting their own KPIs together, I think we have to have our KPIs for this committee, and then they should be both regionalized and then your local district, that you're looking at, so that maybe regionally we are achieving what we think we are with tourism or Ignite, but maybe one area, maybe Arcadia is not getting what they feel is a fair shake, or Fredericton maybe thinks it deserves a different outlook. So I think hearing that feedback from us to them would be a good process to undertake as well.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but within that, in our implementation guide to support our regional strategy, we did develop some KPIs, so maybe that might be a good starting point.
Right.
So we could, bring those to the table, and we'll draft that within terms of reference.
I would like to see the KPIs be both what we can handle, what we can affect, and then some type of a measurable system, because if it's and then establish what's acceptable. If it's acceptable and we're meeting acceptance, I don't really want to spend a whole bunch of time on it. I think that's kind of counterproductive. I'd rather work on the ones that are not acceptable to us at this point. And then once we, if 65 is your acceptable limit, well then, and we're at 65, why are we wasting our time? We've already determined that's acceptable. But if we're at 40 on something, let's deal with that.
Excellent.
Yes.
Just a comment with respect to terms of reference. I guess the ones we've been discussing are really about the meat and potatoes inside these two files. I think it's important for us to have a conversation around some good governance practices and terms of reference in that regard too.
Right.
I would hate to be in a position where we get important documents, the day before a meeting, when we don't have adequate time to review or consult our home municipalities in order to, educate our perspective on them. I know we don't have higher level guidance on, like a governance wide approach to the Capital Regional Service Commission, and maybe that would be the way to go. But I think we need to be sensitive about making sure that we can get the best from our directors and the best from our decision-making practices. And that's going to require a little more lead time on the things we need to read, to educate ourselves, and then to bring valuable content back to these committees.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I see, okay, so I think on the terms of reference, we discussed that maybe we could all submit to John and Kelly, and then we can come up with our terms of reference that we're looking at. I believe on our next steps, I think it's to review the KPIs myself and see what if they still apply, if they are accurate to more detail, or if it's just a catch-all KPI, and that's, and then from that, I believe we could develop the communication piece back and forth, what we're looking for from these groups, if that makes sense. I think that's the way we should approach that. And I still want to know more about the sectorial analysis. I think that sometimes time will cure some issues that we may see as the present, or where we're in the infancy stage. I'd also like to see as we move forward, our KPIs adjustable to, in the beginning, your KPIs are one thing, and then as you move forward and you become more successful in your program, your KPI will change. I would think. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else as far as the next steps that we think that we would need to look at?
Not this time, sir.
All right. Let's talk about the next meeting date. So, to have this, the next meeting is July now. Would we look at the late August? Would that work?
Sure.
Okay, so, is everybody happy with Fridays, or do you want a different day?
Fridays work for me, Mr. Chair.
Everybody's with me as well, sure.
For our folks online, does that work as well?
Okay,
Oh, Victoria, I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, it would depend on the Friday.
how about the 25th?
Okay, that works.
Right. We will get something sent out to you prior to then, and now I need a motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion. Okay,
I'd be happy to second it.
we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.